Welcome again, wonderful Wildcats, to the beginning of the third 6 weeks. Okay, so we're going to start off this third 6 weeks with factoring polynomials, and that's going to be on journal page 31. Okay, as you can see, Thanksgiving break's coming up pretty soon, so that's exciting. So if you would, update your table of contents. All right, now your table of contents are updated. Let's get into our notes. All right, factoring polynomials on page 31. Factoring polynomial steps. Step 1, find the greatest common factor, or GCF. A little note, if you have a trinomial ax squared plus bx plus c, then factor if possible, and that would be step 2. Factor ax squared plus bx plus c. And to do that, we're going to do what's called the reverse box method. Okay, so you've multiplied using the box method before, but we're going to factor using the reverse box method, so it's working backwards, finding out what's inside makes the outside, and then I'll explain that in more detail in the examples. So if you would, update your notes. All right, now your notes are updated. Let's take a look at the examples. All right, and let me see if I can't zoom into the problem. There you go. All right, example 1, factor polynomial. So step 1, find the greatest common factor. So here, we want to find the greatest number that we can divide 6 and 15, and that will go into x. So in this case, 3 is the biggest number that can divide into 6 and 15, and x is the biggest number or variable that can go into x squared and x. So the greatest common factor is 3x. Okay, so we factored that out. And then you have to think about, like, kind of what would you do to multiply to get 6x squared minus 15? Well, 3x times 2x gives you 6x squared. And then 3x times negative 5 gives you negative 15x. This is as factors as it is. There's no x squared, so you don't have to worry about factoring x squared plus bx plus c, and you're done. All right, let's take a look at example 2. All right, example 2 doesn't have a greatest common factor. We put a 1 there. So now step 2, factor ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so we're going to draw our box. Now I'm going to use my ruler to try to make my boxes as exact as possible. So I'm going to do each box half an inch. So the whole box itself is 1 inch. And I'm going to do that, I think, on all the boxes. And take time to make a very organized box because it's going to help you work, okay? So looking at your notes, ax squared goes in this first part and c goes here. And we're looking to find the combination that makes bx, okay? So that's 1x squared and 6. So you have to ask yourself, well, what do you multiply to give you 1x squared? Well, the answer to that is 1x and 1x. Okay, now we need to find what will make 6. So we find all the factors of 6. But because the middle number is negative, and the second number is positive, means these both are negative numbers. So negative 1 times negative 6 gives you a positive 6, but it combines to be negative 7. Okay, so now let's try negative 2. Negative 2 times a negative 3 gives us a positive 6 and combines to be negative 5. There's our combination we want. So we know our factors are minus 2 and minus 3. So we multiply to check. 1x times negative 2 is negative 2x. Negative 3 times 1x is negative 3x. These combine to be negative 5x, which is the middle term. And so this checks. So this is factored as 1x minus 2 times 1x minus 3. All right, let's look at example 3. Now, example 3 is special in that you can't factor when there's a negative number. Now, there's no so that makes your greatest common factor a negative 1. So we're going to factor out a negative 1. So that becomes a 1x squared minus 3x minus 4. And if you ever want to make sure that you factor out the greatest common factor correctly, distribute and multiply check. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 3 is a positive 3. Negative 1 times negative 4 is a positive 4. Okay? So now we're going to use step 2. We're going to factor ax squared plus bx plus c using the reverse box method. So draw our box. And again, take time to draw a nice organized box. Might seem irrelevant, but in my many years of experience of seeing students work, students that are organized tend to do better than students who are not. And I think that's because math is just an organized subject. It lends itself to being organized. All right, so first term, and we're not going to even worry about the negative 1. We'll put that back into our answer at the end, and negative 4. So reverse box method, you ask yourself, well, what do you multiply to give you 1x squared? Well, that's 1x, 1x. Now we need to find all the combinations to make negative 4. So 1 times negative 4. Oh, wait a second. All right, so now, since the last number is negative, the middle number is negative, that means one number will be positive, one will be negative. And then that gives you negative 4, and then 1 minus 4 is negative 3. So we have our combination. So that's plus 1 minus 4. And then you're going to multiply to check to make sure you have the middle term correctly. So 1x times 1 is 1x. Negative 4 times 1x is negative 4x. They combine to be negative 3x, which is our middle term. So our factors are here. Don't forget about the negative 1. So negative 1, 1x plus 1 times 1x minus 4. Now remember, as you're working these, if you get stuck somewhere, you have a question, you don't have to finish the example in the video. You can put a note, and I can work on it. I can work with you on it in class, okay? All right, example 2, or example 4, sorry. Now example 4 and example 5, or no, example 4 and example 7 are probably the more difficult factoring problems. So again, as you're working, if you get stuck or you had questions or you don't understand what I'm doing, just don't finish. Leave it where you left off, and then I'll help you finish it in class, okay? All right, so we first factor greatest common factor. There's no greatest common factor because there's no number that divides into 2, 7, and 3 evenly. So then we go to factoring with the reverse box method. So you draw your box. All right, so first term, first box, last term, last box. So you want to think about what multiplies to give you 2x squared. The only combination that works is 2x times 1x. Now, because this is a 2 and not a 1, that's going to make this problem a little bit more difficult. Not by much, but just a little bit. Because now we find the factors that multiply by 3, but they have to combine to be 7. So we actually have to do this. We know the combinations are 1 and 3. and I believe 3 and 1. But before, because there was just 1, it didn't matter. We could get the combination. Because of 2, we have to do this. We have to multiply the 2 times the first term and 1 times the second term. And then see if that combines to be 7. And at that point, I understand if you're like, what are you saying, Mr. Luke? I don't understand what's going on. So I understand at this point if you want to hold off and I'll go over it in class. But for those of you who understand it, I'm going to keep going. Let's see. So then 2 times 1 is 2. Plus 1 times 3 that's 5. Not 7. So let's try the other combination. So 2 times 3 plus 1 times 1. Well, that's 6 plus 1 is 7. So our combination is 3 and 1. So now the 3 has to go with the 2. So the plus 3 is here, has to go with the 2. And the 1 has to go with the 1. And then you always multiply and check. So 2x times 3 is 6x. 1 times 1x is 1x. They combine to be 7x, which is our middle term. So we have our factors. So that's 2x plus 1 times 1x plus 3. All right, go ahead and finish up example 4. All right, let's look at example 5. All right, so there's no greatest common factor, so now we go to factoring with the reverse box method. All right, so first term, last term. And again, this is going to be significantly easier than example 4 because we have 1x and 1x. Whenever you have 1x and 1x, it makes factoring easier, okay? So now we have to find out what combination gives us 25. So 1 times 25, that combines to be 26, so that's not the middle term of 10. 2 doesn't work. 3 doesn't work. 4 doesn't work. 5 times 5. Notice I went through all the factors. Don't play a guessing game. Just start with 1, then 2, then 3. Always go through all the factors. It's easier to find them. 5 and 5 is 10. So there's a combination. So plus 5, plus 5. So that's 5x. Because 1 times x times 5 is 5x. 5 times 1x is 5x. They combine to be 10x, which is the middle term. So we're good. Its factors is 1x plus 5 times 1x plus 5, which can be also written as 1x plus 5 squared. All right, go ahead and finish up example 5. All right, let's look at example 6. All right, now when factoring, you need to have all 3 terms. If there's no middle term, that means that's 0x. So you want to rewrite this as 9x squared plus 0x minus 4. Okay, now there's no greatest common factor, so we go to factoring with the reverse box method. Now, I think example 6 is probably the most difficult problem on the examples. Compare maybe 4 and 7, maybe compare, but I think this one's the more difficult. I'll show you why after I draw this box. All right, so first term, last term. All right, now why this is more difficult is because you have to figure out all the combinations to make 9x squared. Well, 3x and 3x is one of them, but now you have to draw a second box because you have to try all combinations, and that's what makes this difficult. And if I'm very honest, when I first saw it, I got scared. I almost ran away. But then I thought, you know what? Challenges are fun. And the reason why this is difficult is because 9x and 1x also give you 9x squared. So you have to try both box methods until you get one or realize it's not factorable. But let's start with this one. Okay, so we need to find all the combinations that make -4. So we know 1, -4, and 4, -1. Okay, well, the challenge is you need a 0x. So we have to multiply by 3 and 3. So we have to multiply, you know what? We're going to omit example 8. So I'm going to use space from example 8 to work this. So let me move, zoom out a little bit. I'm actually going to, this problem is quite long, so I'm going to steal space from example 8 to do example 6, okay? So we know 1 and -4 and 4, oh, wait, I'm sorry. See, I broke my own rule. I didn't try every combination. Okay, 2. 2 times -2, 3 doesn't work, 4 times -1. Okay, you want all the combinations. But then here's the thing. Because of the 3's, you have to check because you need 0x. So now we have to multiply each of them by 3 and combine. So we try 3 times 1 plus 3 times -4. Well, that gives, let's see, that's -12. 3 is -9. Okay, that combination doesn't work. Now let's try 3 times 2 plus 3 times -2. Well, that gives us 0. So that's our combination, 2 and -2. Okay, so we lucked out in that we don't actually have to go to the second box because we found it factored here. So 3x plus 2, 3x minus 2. So 3x times 2 is 6x. -2 times 3 is -6x. That combines to be 0x, which checks for the middle term. So we know our factor are 3x minus 2, 3x plus 2. All right, so we'll go ahead and finish up example 6. All right, and then let's look at example 7, last example. All right, so you look for a greatest common factor. Well, in this case, 4 is the largest number that can be divided by all 3 terms. So we factor out a greatest common factor of 4. So we know that 4 times 3 gives us 12x squared. 4 times 5x gives us 20x. And then 4 times -2 gives us -8. All right, so now we're going to factor with the reverse box method. So we draw our box. All right, we're not going to worry about the 4. We'll just put that back into the answer at the end. We're just going to worry about 3x squared and -2. Now, in this case, there's only one combination that makes 3x squared is 3x and 1x. And we need to find the combination to make -2. Well, that's 1 times -2 and 2 times -1. But because these aren't both 1, we have to incorporate the 3 and 1 to find the middle term of 5x. So we have to try 3 times 1 plus 1 times negative 2. And that gives us 1x, or 1, sorry. That doesn't give us a middle term of 5. So now let's try 3 times 2 plus 1 times negative 1 equals 5. That's our combination, so we know it's 2 and negative 1. Now the 2 has to go with 3, and the negative 1 has to go with 1x. So 3x times 2 is 6x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. These combine to be 5x, which is the middle term. So our factors, don't forget the 4, is 4 times 3x minus 1 times 1x plus 2. All right, at this point, you have two options. Option 1 is you wait until I go over the examples that you have questions on in class tomorrow, or you understood the examples and you move on and start working on the assignment. Either way, you'll have a wonderful Wildcat afternoon.